The Ohio State Buckeyes are now officially the number 1 ranked college football team in the country. Number 2 is LSU. Number 3 is Clemson. Number 4 is Georgia. Number 5, Bama. Number 6, Utah. Number 7, Oklahoma. Number 8, Minnesota. 9, Baylor. 10, Penn State. Now, let's go right back to the top with the Ohio State LSU. I've been saying now for, a week and a half. LSU gave up 614 yards to Ole Miss. It's a lot of yards. Oh, yeah. If you have a defense that has the ability to give up that amount of yards, you would think in a big-time game, there's a chance that could happen again. Everybody's saying, well, their strength of schedule has already been immaculate, and they haven't really got bitten in the butt by that thus far. They beat Alabama in Alabama. I understand all of that. I very much understand all of that. But Justin Fields, a quarterback for Ohio State, let's assume that if the Ole Miss quarterback, who I should know his name, can put up 614 yards of offense against LSU. Let's assume that Justin Fields, the most efficient guy in college football, will be able to do the same. Chase Young, the best defender in all of college football, is also on that team, and their punter and kicker are good. I like Ohio State at number 1, even if their strength of schedule hasn't even touched what LSU has yet, because LSU's in the SEC. They still have to play either Minnesota or Wisconsin. They still got a couple big games where they could find a hiccup or a loss. LSU could do the same damn thing, I guess. But for me, this looks like this is setting up how it should be, even though if you're a Clemson fan, you're sitting there like, hey, we are still the reigning champions. We have still yet to lose, and we are still getting hot and hotter and hotter. So as long as you're in there, it doesn't matter. But for me, I think they got it right with Ohio State at 1.
Yeah, Ohio State offensively and defensively, there's no weakness to their team. And then if they beat Michigan and Wisconsin or Minnesota, those are 2 great wins. There's no way they're leaving number 1.
No way. Well, they were number 1 at one point, and then they won by 50, and then they dropped to number 2, and it was like, well, what do you expect?
LSU is Georgia in the championship, SEC championship, most likely, or yes. But I still don't think the win against Georgia versus wins against Michigan and Minnesota probably are going to put LSU above Ohio State.
Well, the thing about it is, and Greeny said it this morning, that they don't want LSU and Alabama playing each other in the college football playoff. They would rather have that be the championship as opposed to the first-round game, which is interesting to me. Would you rather have 2 SEC teams in the championship, or would you rather have them play in the first round? I don't know how much that one makes sense to me. I would like to dig deeper into Greeny's brain there and why he would think they would think that. For me, I think, honestly, it's just strictly because of the 614 yards that LSU's defense gave up and how Ohio State doesn't seem to have a flaw. Now, granted, there's a little bit of a meltdown that happened there against Penn State for a couple drives that let Penn State back in the game, but Ryan Day, Ohio State, got it back on track. And the fact that they lose Urban Meyer and have gotten better is hilarious to me. And that Ryan Day guy, by the way, swag. I heard him talking to the band and the fans like 2.5 hours before the game, and he was like, hey, we're going to kick their ass. Like, he is just like, he is a tell it how it is. I think his players will rally behind him. I assume Ohio State's got a guy for the next 10 years in Ryan Day. Good for him, good for them. But for me, I think Ohio State's the most complete team, even though Joe Burrow and what LSU has done on the offensive side of the ball has been nothing short of impressive. Their defense can step up and make some plays. For me, Justin Fields is the Heisman winner. He's the most efficient quarterback I think football has maybe ever seen with his stats, with turnover ratio to touchdowns produced. Joe Burrow, though, in that same locker room of Ohio State, leaves, goes to LSU, resurgent down there with Coach O. I think they got it right, though.
A lot of people on the show last night, the revealing show, said that they think Utah is going to jump Alabama if they win out, and I just don't. I don't see that. I don't see how that happens.
Well, for the sanctity of the leagues, Pac-12, if Utah goes undefeated in dominant fashion,
right,
and College Football Playoff Committee says, well, we picked the best 4 teams with teams that have losses, with teams that do all these other things, you kind of bury the Pac-12 if you do that. Now, granted, I've gotten a chance to talk to a couple Pac-12 coaches, how they feel like there is a bias against them anyways in this entire thing because they're on the left coast, because they play at night. But if you do that and Utah does go undefeated, and they do win out, and you don't let them in, you're basically telling the Pac-12, you guys might as well be the American Conference, you might as well be MAC, you have no chance of making it in. What's the purpose of them being in the Power 5? There is none. So I think that's why people are saying that potentially on television to generate that conversation. But for me, I think this is the wrong system. It's better than the BCS system, which is when the NCAA sold their right to name a champion. They sold their right to the BCS to name a champion. That's just flat out what the NCAA did. You go to the NCAA Hall of Fame back whenever there was the BCS thing. They had the Division II champion in there because that was the only champion they were allowed to name because they sold their right to BCS. So whenever BCS was happening, everybody knew it was crap. It was a crock of poop. So this now is a little bit better, but I don't think we have gotten to perfection yet. I think you have to have an 8-team playoff. I just think you have to. All the champions, the Power 5, then 3 at-larges. So then this Utah conversation is an even one because you're going to have a lot of upset people in the Pac-12. And not only are the coaches and players upset, let's talk about the fans of the Pac-12. What do I even care about these teams for if they got no chance to win the championship anyways? What are they going to do, win the Rose Bowl? Awesome. The Rose Bowl means nothing. Yes, there's a lot of history and tradition to it, and it's cool to get the chance to play in the Rose Bowl. But if you're not in the playoff anymore, you might as well just call it a day. It's kind of a shame, to be honest with you.